Okay, so now we figured out AutoCAD a little bit. We've got an idea of what all the things do up in the section here, and we've set up our layers. It's time to start drawing for real. With drawing, we use the grid system, right? So we can see the 0, 0 point down here. I think in math you would have all become familiar with Cartesian coordinates, they're called. So 0, 0 here, working up here, we have positive in our y and positive in our x. So if this is 0, 0, this might be 1, 1, 2, 2, 3, 3, 4, 4, etc., etc. So if we want to draw, we can draw with a bunch of different tools. We have our line tool here where we can draw our lines. Quick lazy editing here. We can draw our lines, and what I failed to mention when I was recording the video the first time is that with our lines, there's different ways to start our lines and stop our lines and tell AutoCAD exactly how we want our lines to look. So if we want to start our line, we can start it by just clicking like that, but we can also start it by inputting our first point. So if we look at my cursor right now, it says specify first point. And I can specify where in our Cartesian coordinates I want my first point to be. So where in the y and the x axis I want it to be. So in the first axis, it'll be the x axis. So I can say maybe I want it 100. And then I can press tab on my keyboard to move over. And maybe I want it to be, who knows, 50 up. So this means I want it to start 100 millimeters from 0 to the right and 50 millimeters up. And if I hit enter, I can see now that I've started right there. To tell AutoCAD about how long I want my line, I can either drag it to a point, or I can type a number in. So in this case, maybe I want it to be 132 millimeters long. I hit 132, I hit enter, and I have now made a line that's 132 millimeters long. I can also tell AutoCAD the angle I want the line to be at. So say I want this line to be at 100 millimeters long, and I would like it by pressing tab. I can switch to the angles here. As you can see, I've switched the angle. So I can then say what angle I want it to be. So I've hit tab, I've entered the angles box there, and maybe I want it to be at a 32.5 degree angle. And there it goes. So those are really the two ways that we can draw lines. We can also sometimes press down to access additional options in our tool. So in the line tool, it says specify next point, and I can go down and hit close, and that's to close the line that I've already drawn. So now I have a final line that completes into a shape. As we talked about before, we have our circle tool, which will allow us to draw circles. It is asking me to click and specify the radius of the circle here. So you can either draw and a circle like that and just click, or I can click my circle and draw another one. And this time, say I want it to be exactly 50 millimeters. So I type 50, and I get an exactly 50 millimeter circle. So there's circle there. There is arc. There are many different ways of drawing arcs. 3-point arcs are pretty common. I draw one point, I draw the next point, and then I draw a third point for my arc. I can also do all kinds of other arcs. You're more than welcome to play with them. So that's arcs. I can also draw polygons or squares. So that's a rectangle and a polygon. Here it's asking me to enter the number of sides. So if I wanted to draw an octagon, I could type 8. And it's asking me to specify the center of the polygon. So I could either click anywhere here, or I could tell it that I want it to start at, what's this here? 50, 50. So 50 tab 50. And it's asking, should I inscribe it in a circle or circumscribed about a circle? Inscribed is decent. And here we go now. I've drawn my polygon. I can zoom in with the mouse wheel, and I'm drawing my polygon. Again, I can either just click to set my the size of it or the radius, or I can type a radius, so 35. And there's my polygon or my octagon with 35 millimeter radius. So these are the drawing tools up here. As you can see, it feels a little willy-nilly. It's hard to get things perfect. Sometimes you see these flashing green lines here and there, and sometimes you'll notice that it snaps two different features. So this is the center of this circle here, and this is the center of this circle here. So what we want to do is we want to control what's snapping to what and exactly how we're snapping to things. So let's delete all of this. Recall that if I select from left to right, I only select things I totally go around. If I select from right to left, anything that my box touches is selected. So I'll delete everything. So let's take a look down here at all the different kinds of ways that we can control where we draw to. So the first thing here is our grid. We can turn that on and off. Maybe we like to draw off. I like to have it on, although it doesn't really do anything for me. I can also snap to my grid. So I can tell AutoCAD that I want to snap to every, who knows what it is. We can change it here. So in my snap settings, I can change my snap spacing and my grid spacing. So it looks like my grid is every 10 millimeters and my snap is every 10 millimeters. So as we can see, as I move around, my cursor is snapping to these points. Most people don't like having this on. I don't really like having it on, so I tend to leave my snap off, but you can leave it on if you like. It can help you start at specific points. So we have our snaps and we have our grids. Let's go from left to right. We can ignore this. We don't really use this. This is pretty useful though, our polar tracking. Our polar tracking allows us to stick to specific angles. So I can click it to turn it on, and I can go to draw a line. And let's say I want to start at 50 tab to go to the next one and 50. So I'm starting way down here. And now you'll notice this green dotted line is appearing when I hit certain angles. And I have it again at 45 degrees, and I'll have it again at 0 degrees. Now if I don't like those angles, I can change it. So maybe I want it to be 30 degrees, so it snaps on 60 and 30. Something like that. So that's pretty useful there. So I can change which degrees I snap to. And there's all kinds of options. 23, 45, 68. I bet you this 23 is actually 22 and a half. 18, 36, etc., etc., etc. And tracking settings. So you're capable of changing the increments that you like. Right? So 22.5. And we can add additional angles if we want. Again, unlikely to need that. So we can delete that. What else do we have? We'll get this ISO later. Snapping reference lines, that's whether or not those extension lines come up. And then this is the last thing that's pretty important. So let me draw let's draw a rectangle to start here. And I want to say draw a line that attaches directly to the middle of this rectangle. So right now, if I turn off my snap settings, we no longer see any of those green boxes that were just appearing on the corners there. And I can draw my lines. Let's turn off this one too, and this one too. So right now there's nothing really helping me draw at all. Now, what if I want to draw a line that attaches directly to the middle of this line here? Well, I can come to my snap settings, and I have endpoint on, and I can turn midpoint on. And then if I turn my snap settings back on and I go to draw my line, you'll see that this triangle appears. And this triangle is telling me that this is in fact the midpoint of this line here. So if I want to draw a line that's directly in the middle, I can do that. Now if I wanted to draw it directly perpendicular to this line, I could come down here and I could turn on perpendicular, and I could come like this. See, will it let me do it? Maybe not. It might not let me do that. Another way to draw this perpendicular is to come here and go like that. And now I know that these two are perpendicular. The perpendicular snap works better if I start here and I want to come along here. And now it's shown up as perpendicular.